The silence that cost them everything. You're an optional expense, Elias. We're cutting the budget. That's what my father Robert said, staring right through me over a plate of untouched shepherd's pie in our old Indianapolis dining room. The room felt like a glass cage. One minute I was asking about my mom, Clara's new crochet patterns. The next, she chimed in, her voice flat. Honestly, we don't need your help or your drama anymore. My younger brother Landon didn't even flinch. He just nodded, a small smug curl playing on his lips, finally liberated to speak the thought that had apparently been the silent centerpiece of their lives for months. The air didn't just still. It grew heavy and cold, a lead blanket crushing the space between us. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I didn't even shed a single tear. I just sat in the devastating absolute silence. Because while they believed they were performing a clean surgical cut, they had no clue that my silence wasn't surrender. It was the moment I started writing the new script, and trust me, they never once proofread the ending. The cost of distance and guilt. For years, I told myself the 2,000 miles between my apartment in Seattle, where I worked the grind as a hotshot data architect, and their place in Indiana was the real problem. I was just too busy, too geographically distant, too immersed in big tech deadlines to be the present son they deserved. But that was a comfortable lie. The real truth was rooted in the cracked foundation of our small, dusty home. Growing up, our house always reeked of cheap instant coffee and the musty scent of Dad's struggling cabinetry shop. Money was a constant, suffocating anxiety, the kind that makes you choose a state college tuition over a hot water heater. I can still picture Mom counting crumpled bills after midnight, Dad slamming doors in frustration, and me, pretending to be asleep, listening to their financial terror through the flimsy drywall. It was during the 2008 crash when I made my promise. Landon, terrified and small, would crawl into my twin bed. "We're not going to be homeless, are we, Elias?" He'd whisper, clutching my wrist. I was 15, he was 13, and I swore to him and myself that I would build a wall of money between our family and that fear. I became obsessed. School was my ticket out. Teachers saw my knack for numbers and logic, calling me a math wizard with a mind for untangling complex systems. By high school, I was tutoring college students and dreaming of a world where debt was just a four-letter word. When I snagged a full-ride scholarship and flew west, the suitcase I carried was lighter than the baggage of guilt I left behind. The feeling I was abandoning Landon to the financial storm I'd promised to end. But I never vanished. Every fat paycheck I pulled was immediately designated to fixing the problems back home. The roof repairs Dad deferred, the overdue property taxes, the sudden medical bills I sent the funds through discreet transfers, no fanfare, because in our family, support was a silent mandate, a secret code for love. Landon, meanwhile, chased his own dream, a high-end bespoke coffee roastery he called The Grind. Helping him felt like fulfilling that old childhood pact, a startup loan here, equipment costs covered there, and eventually, a brand new Ford F-150 for all his delivery needs. Slowly, however, Landon's former gratitude calcified into something entitled. He started making snide remarks about my Silicon Valley salary or calling my help a corporate handout. Dad grew terse whenever I mentioned home repairs. Mom's tone suggested my visits were a logistical nightmare. Yet I hoped this particular family dinner would be the reset button. I hoped I could finally feel like I belonged. I was wrong. The rehearsal and the reveal. The moment I stepped into the house, the atmosphere was wrong. Not hostile, but rigidly controlled, like a stage set for a play I hadn't read the script for. Mom offered a stiff hug. Dad gave a curt, neutral nod. Landon flashed a smile that was all surface, the kind he used for difficult customers. I tried to inject normalcy, asking about the grind, the shop's expansion, the upcoming holiday market. The answers were mechanical, brief, like they were desperate to reach the climax of their poorly acted scene. Then came the little barbs, sharper and more intentional than ever before. Landon made a crack about my expensive watch, suggesting it was compensation for a lonely life. Dad muttered about my city slicker priorities. Mom let out a theatrical sigh when I offered to consult on their retirement portfolio. I swallowed the rage and the confusion. I was here to connect, not to fight. The quiet, tense meal reached its inflection point when Dad deliberately placed his fork down. The metallic clink in the silence was deafening. He looked me dead in the eye, resentment blazing. "We're fine, Elias. We don't need your money." Mom didn't pause. "Or your interruptions," she added, her voice smooth and cold as marble. And then Landon, leaning back, arms crossed, delivered the final cut. "She's right. Nobody needs your money or you." It was not a question. It was a declaration of independence, signed and sealed in my exclusion. I searched their faces for a sign of regret, a flicker of humanity. Nothing. They'd already kicked me out of the family long before I walked in the door. The only thing that snapped was the invisible chain I had carried for years. The counter move. I don't recall walking out. 1 second, Landon's final words were ringing in my ears. The next, I was outside, gulping the cold Indiana air. It tasted like ash and betrayal. I walked to my rented car. No one called out. No one followed. My absence made dinner easier. Back at the airport hotel, the silence of the room was overwhelming. I sat on the bed, replaying the scene, the expressionless faces, the practiced cruelty. I pressed my hands to my temples until the colors blurred. My phone buzzed. Ben Carter, my best friend and business partner. Ben wasn't one for drama. "Elias, man, what happened? I saw your brother's feed." I grabbed my phone and navigated to Landon's Instagram. There he was, beaming in front of the grind, the new truck visible behind him. The caption was a gut punch. "Built this whole operation from the ground up, no trust fund, no handouts. Pure grind." Post after post, the same self-made narrative. No mention of the massive equipment loan I co-signed. No nod to the delivery vehicle that was still registered in my name, just Landon, the small-town hero. "It gets worse," Ben said. His manager, that guy Tyler, commented, "A true success story, never needed a dime from anyone else. The whole town buys it, Elias." My heart didn't break, it hardened. The hurt I felt at the dinner table evaporated, replaced by the precise, razor-sharp clarity of a programmer spotting a catastrophic exploit. I wasn't just rejected. I was deliberately and publicly erased. I opened my laptop. My hands were steady now, driven not by emotion, but by the cold, beautiful logic I was trained for. If they didn't need my money, if they didn't need me, then I was finally free of the burden of holding up their entire world. I pulled up the loan documents, the vehicle title, the records of years of silent transfers. The evidence was undeniable. I didn't cry. I just sat, breathing slow and steady, understanding the true power of that silence. It wasn't my surrender. It was the beginning of the undoing, unraveling the threads. I didn't sleep a wink. By dawn, my brain was locked into architect mode. The analytical part of me, the one that managed multi-million-dollar tech infrastructure, was now meticulously planning the structural collapse of their fiction. I didn't go back to the house. I opened my laptop and started. Phase 1, the delivery truck. The sleek black Ford F-150 Landon used to pose with was mine, clear and free of a lien. Purchased cash out, I located the dealership number. "Hi, I need to initiate an immediate retrieval," I said, my voice completely devoid of tremor. "Yes, I'm the registered owner. I have the title." The manager was hesitant. "Sir, are you sure? Do you want to provide notice?" "No, just retrieve it before noon today." A feeling of clean, pure liberation washed over me. It wasn't spite, it was the satisfaction of executing a flawless technical command. Phase 2, the financial anchor. I immediately drafted an email to the corporate bank. Landon's roastery, The Grind, was only viable because I had co-signed a huge commercial loan for the high-end machinery, a loan large enough to obliterate him without my safety net. Effective immediately, I am formally withdrawing as co-signer and will cease all future payments on this account. Please redirect all correspondence and late notices to the primary borrower. I hit send. Consequences weren't a weapon. They were the natural result of their chosen reality. Barely an hour later, the dealership called. Vehicle secured. We're holding it in impound. Click. One pillar of the grind's foundation was gone. A knock. Ben walked in, his eyes wide. Dude, the bank called Landon. The truck is gone from his driveway. The whole town is buzzing on their Facebook group. What in the actual heck is going on? I poured myself a glass of water. I just stopped being his insurance policy. The final scene. By late afternoon, the small-town chaos was in full bloom. Ben showed me the screenshots. Did Landon lose the truck? Thought he was self-made. Heard the grind is already hitting roadblocks. The local praise had curdled into suspicion, and suspicion in a town this small becomes damning fact. Then a text from my cousin, Sam. Heads up, Landon's having a full-blown meltdown at the shop. Robert and Clara are yelling at each other, go see. I didn't rush. I didn't want the drama. I wanted the finality. The grind looked smaller, dimmer. The trendy paint job suddenly cheap. I stepped inside. Landon and his manager, Tyler, were mid-blow-up. Voices low but venomous. You told everyone you were financially independent? Tyler hissed. Why didn't you mention the loan, the truck, all of it? Landon was hysterical, his mascara-like smudges of coffee grounds and tears streaking his face. I never thought he'd be so spiteful. He's trying to ruin me. Then he spotted me. His face instantly contorted from panic to volcanic rage. You did this, Elias. You tried to destroy my life. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't retreat. I simply met his gaze, cool and unyielding. I didn't destroy anything, Landon, I said, my voice measured. I just stopped holding your fiction together. You're just jealous, he spat, the accusation weak and desperate. You hate that people here love my success. I loved you enough to give you everything you asked for, I countered softly. You loved me enough to erase every single trace of it. Tyler stared at Landon, comprehension dawning. You used him, he whispered in disgust. Landon collapsed against a burlap sack of beans, sobbing into his hands. Why couldn't you just leave it alone? Why did you take it all back? I knelt down, not to offer comfort, but to deliver the unvarnished truth she'd begged for. Because you told me, Landon, I whispered, holding his eyes as the tears flowed. You told me nobody needed me, and for the first time in my life I believed you. I stood up. Tyler stepped aside. He didn't defend his boss. He didn't look at me with blame. As I walked out, I offered the final word, a clean, logical summary of his defeat. In the real world, actions always have consequences, even the silent ones. Closure is not revenge. Leaving the grind, the cold air felt restorative. Each step back to my car was lighter. The setting sun cast a final golden glow over Indianapolis, a beauty the town didn't deserve, but one I finally did. Back in Seattle, my apartment felt like a sanctuary. I didn't owe anyone a part of my future. I didn't need revenge to feel whole. I needed distance and clarity. I finally closed the door on the relationship that had been draining me dry. My worth wasn't determined by who failed to see it. It was determined by my willingness to finally choose myself. If you've ever been the one quietly holding a family together while they pretended you didn't exist, I hope my story hits home. Tell me where you're watching from in the comments. Subscribe for more stories about reclaiming your life, and tap the bell so you never miss a thing.